Now I forget. Do you have a college team?
I'm a Michigan fan.
You're a Michigan fan. Interesting. So what's happening there? What do you think?
I mean, they're in some deep shit.
Yeah, seems like it.
um, the fact that they kind of walked back this whole "we're gonna fight this to the very end" stuff
Yes.
very
Yeah.
much seems like, well, our hands got caught in the cookie jar. Why didn't they just admit it in the first place? Because I
I
mean,
saw some stuff today that people were kind of speculating that they maybe found some things like they thought first, like we're fine, and then something came out and they're like, shit, I guess we're not fine. I don't know.
I think that the team and the actual organization didn't know a lot about what was
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is that we don't know much about what's going on. You have a booster that's helping them and a
Uncle T.
coach, that were doing it all behind the scenes, and Harbaugh didn't know, the team president didn't know, the president of
Lack
the
of
university
institutional
didn't know.
control, right? I mean, that's what they always
Yeah.
hit schools with. Is Uncle T Tom Brady?
I don't know. I think that'd be hilarious though.
Right? Michigan, cheating, football, Uncle T, he's retired. Like it all adds up.
Tom Brady. That's who it is.
Welcome into It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I am Taylor. You can find me on Twitter at Taylor_Wit. And you're hearing my beautiful voice instead of the crackly tones of the real bird lawyer because Austin had a bunch of conflicts and chaos this week and couldn't make the show work before he heads for his vacation. So shout out, buddy. But we are march on without you. Don't worry. I am not alone. Joining me is the best pinch hitter in the podcast game, film analyst for RGR Football. He's got NFL33.com. He's a fan favorite guest host here. You know him, you love him. Dan Harms. Dan, thank you as always for stepping in. How the heck are you tonight?
Doing great. It's hard to follow such a great introduction like that, but I appreciate the kind words. Anytime that I can step in and help bridge the gap between Austin and the group that follows you guys that are such a great bunch of fans, I'm always available to step in. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Good to hear. Well, you always get rave reviews from our end, so keep up the good work, and I am looking forward to another fun show. We are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the best way to get your in-season fantasy football draft fix and drafting on other sports. They've got pick'em bets, all kinds of degenerate gambling action over there. Use promo code SUNNY, SUNNY, to get a matching deposit of up to $100. We have a great show for you guys, as always. A little tight this week, but we're going to hit some news. We're going to do what is happening, including what is happening with your Kansas City Chiefs, and then a quick Week 11 preview of the Super Bowl 57 rematch, Chiefs versus Philadelphia Eagles. Without further ado, transaction news. Defensive tackle Keandre Coburn was released by the Broncos and makes his return to the Chiefs practice squad. So the Chiefs bring back their 6th-round pick from the most recent draft. Nice reunion story here, especially for fans that might have been a little upset at the Chiefs releasing the big guy from the University of Texas so quickly. Dan, do you approve of this minor transaction reunion?
I love this. This is like Simba returning after he was, after Mufasa died. He left,
Yeah,
becomes the lion on his own, and now he's back, hopefully being gonna stay in Kansas City for a little while. But yes, we're all very happy that Keandre Coburn is back where he was drafted and where the Chiefs tried to get him on the practice squad. They thought nobody was watching. Thought
they could sneak him through.
Turns out maybe the Broncos were trying to get a little bit of heads in on what was going on in Denver or in the Chiefs defensive side. He's no longer there. They don't play the Broncos anymore. And now he's back in Kansas City. That's something that I'm interested in. But yes, very happy he's back in Kansas City. Looking forward to seeing what he's able to grow into as his career hits forward.
I agree. That was a fun little pickup. Reunions are always fun. Anytime you can bring a guy back in the building and kind of, get some good love going there, but it's always nice too when he's young and he had some promise. I mean, I certainly was excited to see and still am excited to see what he can do down the road. So really liked that transaction. That's pretty much it. It's week 11. So, a lot of this stuff on the transaction front has already kind of locked in. But Dan, we have not had any on-air time, you and I, since the world was turned upside down by the friendship bracelet that belongs in Canton, Ohio, as Tavis is now on the front seat of every conversation around. You are, along with myself and our absent bird lawyer, a proud Swiftie. How much fun have you had following the world's two most attractive and successful people fall for each other?
It's been so fantastic. I'm not someone that gets in on what's going on in the world, like that in that way. Like, I don't necessarily
like gossip.
care about like gossip, famous people doing this stuff. I don't really care. When I heard that this happened, I shit you not, I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I'm actually giddy about it. My wife hates it. She can't stand it. I'm always telling her about well, what happened here. Travis was at her concert. I started with the rumors, and then she was like, whatever. And now, like, I tell her she's at Arrowhead. He was at her concert. This stuff is going. He's literal real world famous now, not just NFL famous.
Yes,
legit real world famous. I'm happy for him. He seems to be handling it exceptionally well. When we go back to Travis Kelce's entire, not just career, but before that, I don't know about you guys, but I've watched the ESPN Plus documentary about Jason and Travis, and Jason kind of saving his football career. And you think about the player and the person that he was, even the hothead that he was early in his career in Kansas City, the transformation that has gone on just with him as a person on the field, taking over that leadership role. And now we kind of see he's just this wholesome guy.
Yeah.
And the entire world is seeing the kind of person that we've been watching grow into this, as fans and people who just love the Chiefs and love Travis Kelce. It's wonderful that the people that are kind of, the Swifties themselves are taking him under their wing and just kind of like, this guy is awesome. Yes, he is awesome.
He is
fantastic.
Now, speaking of who he used to be, have you noticed the recent trend on Twitter these days? Which is finding Travis Kelce's tweets from 2010 when he was 20 years old, and they are gut-wrenching. They're hilarious. They're so hilarious. Funny. He just is such a 20s know-nothing football dude, and tweeting about squirrels eating bread and misspelling everything, and how he loves Olive Garden, and how just very nap time rules. Like, he sounds like a cartoon character, and it's just the most hilarious, wholesome stuff. Star Wars retweeted him, IGN retweeted him. I've seen, a bunch of different Twitter accounts just having fun at the old Kelce tweets. Is there a particular old Kelce tweet that you found to be the most funny, or are they all just amazing?
I'm pretty sure that I love all of them, but I think I laughed the hardest at the Jesus taking one for a team for the team. I think
for Easter.
For Easter. That one got me good.
He is absolutely the best. You mentioned that he, of course, went to her concert down in Argentina. That was a big seminal moment for Tavis as a couple. They had a very Hollywood run kiss, looked like Dirty Dancing or something, where she ran right off the stage and right into his arms. She changed the lyrics, which was a big deal, of Karma to Karma is the guy on the Chiefs. That was a funny moment. It seems like they're like full blast, full steam ahead, loving every minute of this. Austin excitedly sent me a rumor today that someone said that there have been talks in her inner circle that he has already asked her dad for permission to ask for her hand in marriage, which is crazy, and definitely something that I think everybody who's rooting for it is super giddy about. Just couldn't be happier for the two great people that they are, and we look forward to many more Tavis updates in podcast future. Back to football. I know. The injury report for the Chiefs, which we normally do in our news segment, but there's really nothing to report. They had some people on the injury report, but nobody even with a limited practice today on Friday. Everybody was full go. Great news to see out of the bye week. I think it was maybe last year, I forget the specifics, but somebody picked up a really annoying injury on the bye week that the Chiefs had last year that I remember being like, well, what the hell were you doing? But this year, full systems go for the upcoming week 11 game there. Have you listened to Fairy Tale of Philadelphia yet? The Kelsey Brothers Christmas song duet, which is the #1 song on iTunes right now. Have you got that?
I have, and it's so good.
It's
Like I
brilliant.
was not expecting it. And I know that this is like one of the easiest things the cliches football guys can't sing, but he's Jason has a fantastic like
He does.
earthy voice, and then
Mm-hmm.
Travis is more of the I want to be upbeat, and I'm trying to not make a mistake. You know,
Yeah.
he seems like the entire time he's trying really hard to not screw up, but you could tell they have at least some musical understanding in their background. They
Mm-hmm.
understand tune and how to sing in with each other, which is very difficult to do, to sing with someone at a match pitch and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I loved it. My wife gave me a very weird look when I was playing it on my phone the other day.
Dude, it's like a classic Christmas song. Like it's
Yeah,
very Christmassy sounding. Now, obviously, they crack some jokes and say some funny stuff in there, but in general, I
yeah,
felt like the vibe on that was really well produced. Obviously, the Eagles put out a Christmas album last year that was a huge success,
yes.
and they had a lot of the similar talent involved with making this one. This was just one song, but it's of course going to be a song that's on the Christmas album coming up this year. So just a lot of fun, good vibes there. I saw a little video of Jason when they were thinking about how to do this song, and it was like two people that love each other but hate each other at the same time. And he's like, this just sounds like Trav and I, and he called them up, and it was good to go. So just a really fun and good story. And of course, the Kelceys just keep winning. I mean, they're absolutely dominating everything in the world right now. Jason Kelce was a finalist for People's Sexiest Man Alive. They're the #1 podcast. They've got a song on iTunes. They're doing everything. So we are huge fans of the Kelceys. Maybe not
Yes,
this week as much as normal, but what a great group those two are.
it's incredible. Like they're not just taking over the NFL world; they're just branching out and just being who they are.
Yeah,
They're just being who they are. And everybody loves them because they're fantastic people, and that's what at the end of the day, that's what that's what I care about. These are two
agreed.
fantastic people, and everyone is recognizing who they are because of how they share their lives. They don't I mean, obviously Travis is going to keep some of his personal life to himself, which everyone has the right to do, but
Yeah.
the fact that they're so open with sharing their time, their families, and their own personas with everybody is such a it's missing in a lot of today's society, and it's very refreshing for a lot of people, and I love getting to see them just be embraced by everybody. It's a fantastic moment, and it's a fantastic time that we get to appreciate this and enjoy it with everybody else.
Yep, completely agreed. They're very relatable, very likable. The podcast has, of course, helped tremendously with everyone
Yeah,
getting to know them. And when you're as likable as they are, more exposure to them is only going to make them more popular, because anybody who runs into any of those podcast clips or episodes or whatever immediately becomes fans. So they know what they're doing. They're doing a great job, and we hope that they keep it up for a while to go. Let's move on in the show to
what is happening.
We're going to take a quick look at the AFC playoff picture, because it is wild right now at the midway point in the season. #1, we will circle back to these fellas in a minute, the Kansas City Chiefs at 7-2, but I want to talk about the rest of the AFC. So second seed right now, as of Friday night, is the 8-3 Baltimore Ravens, who just beat the Bengals on Thursday night, who we will also talk about. Through 10 weeks, this was a really crazy stat. The Ravens trailed for less than 28 total minutes, which is one of the 5 best marks through 10 weeks since 1983 when they started tracking this. But oddly, the other 4 to do that all made the Super Bowl and started 10-0 on the year. The Ravens are obviously, they were 7-3 through 10 weeks. Just a really weird team that is capable of being completely dominant, blew out the Lions, blew out the Seahawks, have shown up really well to a lot of big games, but of course also lost some weird ones, the Colts, the Steelers. What do you make of this Ravens team right now? Are they worthy of the #2 seed? Do you think they're the second or maybe the best team in the AFC?
I think right now that they're playing as the best team in the AFC, regardless of the loss to the Browns 2 weeks ago. We'll see how obviously the Chiefs come out in the second half, and we'll see how they play. But I don't think you can really argue that their offense has been better than the Chiefs' offense for the entire season, just about. And I think it's no misnomer. Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes, but there's been a lot of inconsistencies in what the Ravens have done with the run game, their ability to run on anybody. And then they really have Lamar, who's stepped up as a passer this season. And the guy that really is starting to get a lot of recognition. Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, was previously Michigan's defensive coordinator. And then before that, he worked under Wink Martindale. So a lot of the things that he's doing, he's still doing a lot of the blitz heavy stuff. He's masking everything very well. Simulated pressures. He's sending it differently. He's making quarterbacks have to actually think. Wink was always just like, I'm going to show you my hand. I don't care. You know what's coming. You figure out how to get the ball out. But McDonald is much more calculated. It's more simulated. We're going to drop some guys out, rush from different spots. We're going to take away your first read and then rush on the opposite side. So you're looking one way and the blitz is coming from the opposite side. So their defense right now, in my opinion, is the biggest reason why they're able to be in these games. But it's really weird because you have also in the second half of that Cleveland game where they just kind of disappeared a little bit. And Deshaun Watson, who obviously is now going to be out the rest of the season, was, I believe, what was it,
14 of 14 with a broken shoulder, with the injury that knocked him out for the year, still gutted through that. And second half of that game, he was perfect.
It's a weird dynamic. Like they have all these things that work out for them. They're having some injuries now as well. Marlon Humphrey missed Thursday Night Football. Obviously, Mark
feels like they're always injured, aren't they?
It does. They're always nursing some injuries, and they're like the Chargers in that sense. Except this year, they're winning games even without their injuries. So I believe that Baltimore, is playing as the best team in the AFC right now. We'll see how long that lasts, because I think they're hitting their stride before the postseason, as I think what we're going to find out.
Which is dangerous, which is not something you want to do. You want to make sure you peak at the right time. And just to peek ahead at their remaining schedule, at Chargers versus Rams, at Jaguars, at Niners versus Dolphins versus Steelers. So the Ravens certainly have a road ahead of them. They've put themselves in good position, being the first AFC team to 8 wins, but it is by no means an easy task moving forward. The third seed right now is the 6-3 Jacksonville Jaguars. They had a nice little run, but they got blown out at home by the 49ers to drop to 6-3. What are your feelings on the Jags right now, both with Lawrence and that offense, and then kind of how they're situated in the AFC race?
The Chiefs and the Jags are very similar. I think the Chiefs' defense is better than the Jags, but much like the Chiefs last year, their defense wasn't exactly the best. And then this year, they have a lot of the same pieces, and it's much better. It's been much better all across the board. They've been much better stopping the run, playing the pass. You know, their entire philosophy on defense has really changed. Jim Caldwell's done a great job coaching that team. And we forget, when you're in the same system for 2 years in a row, it makes such a big difference on the defensive players. And Caldwell was there last year. They literally brought nobody in on defense to make impact. They had, I believe, one of their players, the linebackers, Folukan, maybe
Foyze Oludekon or something like that. Yeah, it's a tough one.
He was injured last year. He's playing for them this year. But that having that continuity from last year to this year and everyone understanding what their job is, it makes what you want to do as a defensive coordinator so much easier. So their defense has been fantastic, and obviously their offense has struggled. To what it's really come down to is that they're doing a lot of the same things the Chiefs are doing. They're moving the ball in between 20s, but the difference between the Chiefs and the Jags is the Chiefs are kind of settling for field goals at times. The Jags are just turning the football over in the red zone. Fumbles, interceptions, you name it. They're doing it, and it's just been this constant struggle for them to score, and their offensive line is awful. It is so bad. They cannot protect Trevor Lawrence. They cannot run the football. It's sporadic. Travis Etienne is basically, if I don't hit a home run, it's going for like 1 or 2 yards at most, or negative yards. And Trevor has to get the ball out so quickly. And their offensive players, when they're starters outside of Christian Kirk, are not designed to win quickly. I think everyone wanted Calvin Ridley to be this dominating one-on-one guy on the outside. He hasn't been that. But also, they can't get the ball to him because he's the X receiver. He is their X. Their Z is Zay Jones, who is hurt now, and you have to facilitate that. So they're the players that win quickly, they have one. And it's Christian Kirk. That's why we've seen his involvement over the past 9 weeks skyrocket outside of week 1. So they're trying to figure out how to get the ball out quickly into their playmakers' hands. and also involve Calvin Ridley, who, blew up in week 1, but hasn't done anything since really. And all of it while still trying to figure out how this offensive line can keep them afloat. Trevor Lawrence is fantastic. He's been great all season, but at the end of the day, he can't make up for all of the deficiencies that they have at winning quickly and their offensive line. So a lot of the same problems that we're seeing right now in Kansas City. I think the big difference is that their offensive line is not going to get better. I just don't think it's going to get better. I think it's going to stay the way. So they're a good team at 6-3 at the 3 seed, but I think we might see a little bit of shuffling here, specifically with one of the teams in their division, which
coming on strong. We'll talk about them. Yeah, for sure. The Jags did rip off a 5-game winning streak over the Falcons, Bills, Colts, Saints, and Steelers, but then, they got blown out at home by the Niners. That's not a big shame to get blown out by a good team in the 49ers. They are stacked. They obviously just brought in Chase Young. So we'll see what the Jags have moving forward. They play the Titans, Texans, Bengals, Browns, Ravens, Bucks, Panthers, and Titans as their final games of the year. So some, especially some big AFC North battles in there with all the Bengals, Browns, and Ravens in 3 straight weeks. So we will see if the Jags are up to the task there. We then are going to move on to the team that we just saw the Chiefs play. The 6-3 Miami Dolphins are currently the 4 seed. We kind of know what they're about. Obviously pretty familiar with their game, having just matched up with them directly. But with the weather getting worse as the season, as it does when time goes on, do you have concerns about this high-flying offense holding up as things get colder, as things or games are played outdoors? Do you have any, Miami's kind of stereotypically that like, oh yeah, I get why they're good in September, but let's see them in January. Is that fair for this team? Or do you think that their brand is going to be okay, if not dominant, then at least competitive late in the year?
I think it can be, because one, their defense is getting better. It's getting more, I guess, Jalen Ramsey just came back. And I think Vic Fangio is starting to understand how to use his players well. And we kind of saw that in the second half of the game in Germany. Like they were excellent in the second half. Chiefs didn't help themselves out, as we saw. But that's what travels in December, in January, running the ball in defense. They can run the ball very well, but the Chiefs were up to the task. I think that's the big thing is if you put the game on Tua's shoulders in the cold weather, do I think he's going to be able to deliver? I don't know. We haven't seen him play in the cold in games that matter. He missed the playoff game last year against the Bills where Skylar Thompson almost beat them.
He did.
Funny enough, Skylar Thompson played in none other than Northwestern.
That's right.
He was familiar with the cold weather. You see how that kind of stuff works? It's so weird how that is. And so I don't know if Tua's going to be a cold weather quarterback in the postseason. We haven't seen it. So we have to wait and see. I do expect them to make the postseason. They're probably going to host a playoff game. And after that, you're going to have to see them travel. So the wild card round, they'll be fine in Miami. After that, we're going to get some questions answered about Tua. But they do run the ball very well. Their offensive line is bad, as we've seen, but they've been able to still run the ball. Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert. They got,
nasty.
Wilson, Jeff Wilson.
Jeff Wilson Jr. Yeah, the old 49er.
Just came back from the injuries. So they can run the ball well. They can really stress the edges of the defense. And if you come in to a game where your linebackers, your secondary, maybe they're not the fastest, so they don't want to get as physical in the run game, you're going to be hurting come January time because they can still run the ball. So I like their team. I like their defense. You're getting in a really good position to play good defense and run the ball. I'm very skeptical about Tua in the cold, and we're going to find out. So I'm excited to kind of actually see it for the first time because he's playing healthy. He's playing well. And I think that team, if he can prove that he can throw the ball and sling it around in the cold, they're going to be a very dangerous team for the future and the years to come.
And it, of course, helps to have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They've obviously got the skill players to do it. One quick editor's note here. Now, you did mention Skylar Thompson playing for a college that wears purple, but you named the wrong college. He spent 6 years, but not at Northwestern, at local K-State. He was K-State quarterback. Okay. So you envisioned him in college with the purple jersey, just not the right look. If we had K-State fans who were listening, I'm sure that would have corrected me if I didn't do that. So let us move to.
My apologies, K-Staters. There's so many quarterbacks that played the same way as Skylar Thompson and wore purple. I apologize.
But and I mean, K-State is certainly known for its cold weather as the
Absolutely.
as the winter goes on. So same idea there, that he's not exactly like he was a California or Texas kid or someone that, wasn't used to that cold weather. And he went into Buffalo and played him tight. And like you said, we haven't seen Tua play any meaningful games at the NFL level. By the time his teams are either usually out of it or he's out of it. So it'll be interesting, assuming he does stick around, to kind of see what he can muster for the second half of the year. Miami's second half, just so we're on the same page there, with all these remaining teams, they go Raiders, Jets, Commanders, Titans, Jets, Cowboys, Ravens, Bills. So they've got, Miami's had this narrative that they can't beat winning teams because for the last, I forget what the number is. Yeah. I think it's maybe 14 in a row or 13 or something like that, where they've gone up against a team that's just over 500. They've lost the game. And so, of course, that includes this year. There are 3 losses to the Bills, Eagles, and Chiefs, 3 great teams. But when is Miami going to prove that they can actually beat a team worth a damn? Well, they're going to get a shot against the Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills to end the year. Well, unless the Bills are 500, which we will talk about here in the next group, which is actually, it'll be the group after that. That is a shock. So after Miami, we talk about the 3 wildcard teams, and the current 3 wildcard spots are surprises, all 3 of them. The 6-3 Steelers, who have been outgained in yards in every game this season and are still 6-3, remarkable. The 6-3 Browns, who we mentioned, did just lose Deshaun Watson for the season, much to the dismay of absolutely nobody because that dude sucks. And we have the 5-4 Houston Stroud Boys. They are lighting the world on fire right now. Everybody's a big Houston fan and CJ Stroud fan. Any thoughts on those 3 teams about who has the best chance of either keeping the wild card spot, or what I believe I'm going to predict, one of those teams maybe sneaking in and grabbing a division title?
Yeah, so right now the Steelers are that meme of the woman standing at the front of the plane and looking at the back and saying he's fake. They're absolutely fake because they have been outscored by 26 points. No other team in the top 7 has been outscored. They've outscored their opponents. They're the net points of negative 26 points. They're not a good team. They're so fake. But funny enough, they're the only team inside the top 7. Actually, the only team in the AFC that is undefeated in their division. They're 2-0. No other team is. It's wild what is happening right now with the Steelers. And you want to know what's funny? They get going in the next 2 games. They are playing backup quarterbacks.
Yeah. Backup AFC North quarterbacks, right? Because they get AFC, the Browns and Bengals back to back. Yeah.
And the Bengals. Yeah. So they could legitimately be 8-3 after these next 2 games. And they're going to find their way into the postseason. Everyone's going to give the Steelers all their flowers, but they're a bad football team. Kenny Pickett.
Is it Matt Canada's fault?
Is it everyone's fault? Their defense isn't even that good this year. They have some really good players, but they haven't been excellent. They're rounding into form. Joey Porter Jr. is doing a good job. Rookie out of Penn State. They're playing a little bit more physically, so their defense is going to get better, especially when we get Fitzpatrick gets back. But they're such a fake team. Their offense is awful, and I don't necessarily think it's just Matt Canada's fault. Kenny Pickett's not a good NFL quarterback. No, He has never thrown more than 2 touchdowns in a game in his NFL career.
Ever. He has 13 over the last 2 years. Yeah, he just doesn't throw them.
No, so they're fake. The Browns are done. Their defense is fantastic. Unless I loved, DTR coming out. I was a big DTR guy. Unless he takes some steps forward, I don't see them being serious. Their offensive line injuries. They don't have Nick Chubb. They're running Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford, who I love. Jerome Ford's been fantastic this year.
Yeah, he's a dog. Yeah.
With a banged up offensive line. So he's been good, but their quarterback play is just not going to be up to par unless their defense just pulls, a 2005 Bears where they drag Rex Grossman to the postseason. I don't know if they can do that with DTR. We'll see. And then the Texans, the team that everyone wants to talk about, that I want to talk about. CJ Stroud's fantastic. CJ Stroud's so good. He's legitimately a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
He's an MVP candidate, isn't he?
No, he's not an MVP.
He's not an MVP candidate?
He's a great story. No, he's a great
Where
story.
would you rank him in the MVP race, roughly?
I'm not even starting MVP talk yet. This
is
like, if you look around the NFL, there's a reason that CJ Stroud's been talked about because no one's really taken it. Okay.
Yeah.
But
correct.
It hasn't really gotten to that point for me. He's locked up the rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year, period.
Sure.
It's his end of story.
Yeah.
Now, if this play continues up into postseason, then yes, or not in postseason, but December, yes,
Mhm.
we'll talk about him being in the MVP race, but I'm not there yet, specifically because we just watched 2 weeks ago them get beaten by the Carolina Panthers. Let's be very
Yeah.
honest with it. People kind of forgot that. Yeah, he had a
Yep.
fantastic game after that, and they just beat the Bengals. That's what we're hearing right now, which is
Mhm.
good. I love what I'm telling you. CJ Stroud is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He absolutely is. But right now, he's not in the MVP race. Rookie, and we'll see how they do. But their team's good. Their defense is playing very well. It's coming up. Tank Dell, who I was a huge fan of coming out of Houston, is a baller. He's a
Yeah, he is.
legitimate NFL wide receiver. And they have Nico Collins. Unfortunately, Noah Brown's going to miss this weekend. He was I believe he doesn't have a drop on the year, and every single one of his catches is like for 30 yards.
Yeah, and like a
that.
highlight catch. I mean, the dude is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
But yeah, you go Robert Woods over there, who's playing very well, and
Mhm.
they have a really good offense, and they can't even run the ball. They can't. Every defense knows they can't run the ball.
Yeah, Pierce
and
has
it
been
doesn't
hurt, so
matter.
they've been running Singletary, and yeah, they can't really
Yeah.
run. You're right.
So CJ Stroud's fantastic. I love this story. I was actually one of the people early before the season started that said the Texans are going to be kind of like the Detroit Lions were last year, really, really feisty. Maybe they don't win every single game. They're going to
Sure.
be close at the end. Right now, they're in the 7th seed. Like that's
Yeah.
what the Lions were trying to get in at the 7th seed last year. So this is a very feisty team. It's a good team. It's a young team. And CJ Stroud is the franchise quarterback that the Texans wanted, got, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch for going forward. He's going to give the Jaguars a run in this division. I'm very excited to see how this ends out.
I agree. It's been crazy. So they're 5 wins. Of course, you mentioned their Bengals win. They beat the
Yes.
Bucks, who are 4-5, the Saints, who are 5-5, the Steelers, who we mentioned are weird and doesn't really matter what the record is because they're weird, but then the Jags. So those are their 5 wins, but then their losses were the Panthers, 15-13, the Falcons, the Colts, and the Ravens, which is not a bad loss. And that was CJ Stroud's first start in week 1. But like they're so up and down. But when they are up, I mean, he moves the ball better than anybody in the league right now as far as just passing yards. He's been unbelievable. Basically, he's on this side of Sam Howell. He's the guy you want for throwing the football. So it's been wild. I'm a huge Texans fan right now. I think they're easy to root for. And DeMeco Ryans, of course, we didn't even mention him, but as a first-year head coach, I mean, that's so hard with a team that drafts towards the top of the draft and being first-year head coach to get all those guys bought in and doing stuff the right way is a lot of fun. So I agree with you that they're super easy to root for. And of the teams that are in the wild card, I really like their chances to at least float around. And Houston, of course, because they're playing a 4th place schedule, Cardinals, Jaguars, Broncos, Jets, Titans, Browns, Titans, Colts. I mean, they could go on a pretty good run here. So looking forward to seeing that. And now we get to maybe the most interesting group or grouping in the AFC title race, which is the playoff race, which is the teams that are outside. And the teams that are right on the outside are the 5-5 Bengals, who just lost Joe Burrow to a season-ending torn ligament in his arm. The 5-5 Bills, who just fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey and are super hard to figure out. They're either dominant or terrible. And the AFC West outside of the Chiefs, the 5-5 Raiders, the 4-5 Chargers, the 4-5 Broncos. Give me a team from that group that you could see, given all their struggles and everything that's going on with them, make late season noise. Are the Bills too easy of an answer there? Is anyone else there besides the Bills a threat? Obviously, the Bengals without Joe Burrow, probably not. But what are you thinking there?
It's still the Bills for me. Their offense, I think Ken Dorsey was we have to do something. Yeah. Something has to change. People have to understand that your jobs are on the line here. Our offense is really good still. And for whatever reason, they just were unable to beat the Broncos. They kept shooting themselves in the foot. It was very reminiscent of how the Chiefs lost to the Broncos. It was very reminiscent. Yeah. That's tough to replicate. But they went into Buffalo and kind of forced some turnovers. Obviously, Gabe Davis helped them. John James Cook with the fumble. It's a weird recipe to lose a game like that, and then you go back and you say, well, someone's head's got to roll. We're sorry, Ken. And the funny thing about this, I was listening to the Athletic Football Show podcast, and you guys don't, I know most of you do, go listen to it. They're fantastic. Nate and Robert do a fantastic job. Josh Allen wanted Ken Dorsey as the offensive coordinator. He
lobbied for him bad.
What are we doing, Sean McDermott? You fire the guy that your quarterback wanted for Joe Brady, who, by the way, has only ever had success with Joe Burrow, Justin Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase,
Yeah.
and one of the greatest offenses ever.
Most loaded college offense. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
So I don't know what the deal is there, but out of those teams, the one team that has, there's two teams that have the quarterback. I just don't think the Chargers are any good.
Do they have the quarterback? Do the Chargers have the quarterback?
They absolutely do. Did you guys?
He's 29 and 29.
I don't care about his record. He can't play defense. He can't play defense.
But he doesn't even really
41 points to the Lions.
Yeah, I know you're right. It's like
touchdowns.
A Big 12 team. Like,
yeah,
they've got talent on offense, but they just can't get it figured out. Yeah, that's fair.
And even when they do, they had their center done for the season. Mike Williams done for the season. Quentin Johnston, a bum. He's not been very good. I'm not saying he's not gonna develop. But
Joshua Palmer, wide receiver 2, got hurt and has been out a couple weeks. Yeah.
What does Justin, and he just threw for 400 plus yards, 4 touchdowns. Yes, Keenan Allen has been awesome, but who else is there?
Yeah.
Who else is there? Okay. So yes, Herbert is the guy. If they could get any semblance of a defense, he would actually be able to win games.
What they need to do is they need to bring in a defensive minded head. Wait.
You know, something really funny. I was doing some research for my video this week on Football Guys YouTube page. And the Chargers defense, this is fantasy points allowed, but just stick with me.
Yep.
The Chargers defense is top 5 in fantasy points given up to quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end.
No way.
All of the positions.
They're top 5 in each position.
In each one.
That's almost impossible to do. Like, if you're giving up so many points, how can they afford to give up points to everybody at the same time? That's crazy.
And so everyone keeps dogging on Justin Herbert. And he does have some games where you're like, you shouldn't have thrown that. You should have made that throw. Everyone has that. Look at Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
He has that.
He's had plenty of those lately. Yeah.
Yeah. And I go back to the Rams game from 2018 where Patrick was going toe to toe, with Jared Goff, who's playing fantastic football.
He's 2-0 against Mahomes head to head.
That feels a lot like what Herbert has to go through. And he has to deal with all of the stuff the Chiefs went through in 2021 with the tip pass interceptions, with the fumbles, and people not catching the football. That feels like what he has to deal with. On top of it, all the injuries as well.
Which the Chiefs have never dealt with.
Not really, no. I feel awful for Justin Herbert. I think he is a dude, but
he is. What you're saying is that he's dealing with the 2018 Chiefs defense, the 2021 Chiefs mistakes, a worse coach than the Chiefs have ever had, and a worse injury luck than the Chiefs have had in 20 years.
Exactly. So that's what he's got to deal with.
All right. I guess I'm more bought in on Herbert now. I do think that it's been crazy that despite all that his talent, which is so apparent, just hasn't lifted everyone else up despite all the other challenges. But that is a pretty tough mountain to climb. So we will give Justin Herbert a pass there for now. So that is the AFC playoff picture. It is wild right now. There are 14 AFC teams that have won at least 4 games through week 10, which is the most since 2002, since division realignment. So definitely parity, is at an all-time high there. The Chiefs are probably pretty lucky to be at 7-2 in the top of this heap and to not have all these crazy, whether it's the quarterback injuries or losing the really terrible games. The Chiefs have had one game like that where they lost an inexplicable one, but pretty much everyone in the AFC has lost a handful of games where they just plain shouldn't have lost. So let's move on to what is happening Chiefs edition, where we're going to kind of talk about just some of the things everyone wants to talk about in the Chiefs. And of course, in 2023, that starts with the wide receiver group. That's what everyone wants to talk about all day long. Obviously, the results have not been good. We know this. But Dan, you grind a ton of tape on these guys. You're very familiar with what they bring to the table, what the Chiefs are trying to do schematically. Do you see light at the end of the tunnel? Do you think that this team, by the time the games matter the most in January and potentially February, are going to have the guys in that room to at least win those football games?
I do, and a lot of it comes down to I think that they need to that they will understand that they've been predictable with how they deployed their wide receivers. I've talked about this a lot on the RGR channel. MVS and Justin Watson, their best routes are downfield routes. So If I can tell you that on this podcast, someone who's not a coach, I want you to think about defensive coordinators and the players themselves that watch these guys come out there. Well, they're going to try to throw the ball deep. Okay. Pretty much. And Travis Kelce. Okay. We'll keep eyes on him. Make sure that the other receiver, whoever ends up being, doesn't get loose, and then just squeeze the deep routes from Justin Watson and MVS. Like that's what the Broncos did. That's what the Miami Dolphins were doing later in the game. They were squeezing. And what I mean by that is we see a lot of these cover two shells where you have two deep safeties and they like to play off. So more cover four. So those corners that are on the outside as well, they get deep. And when you have those outside deep routes, they can take that safety in that corner and they can squeeze the receiver. And when you do that and to take away Travis Kelce, which is typically the first read because he's not a deep threat anymore in terms of throwing the ball down the field like that, it makes the read have to be so quick. So Travis Kelce first, okay, he's not open. I'm seeing my deep routes being squeezed down. And by that time, it's already been 3+ seconds. We've got pressure in my pocket.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that a lot. And Patrick is holding on to the ball longer than he ever has in his entire career. A lot of it is because they've been so predictable. So I'm of the opinion that these receivers, they're going to be out there. Whoever the 4, 5, I think 5 should be the most you rotate in and out. It shouldn't be any more than that. We need to stop seeing 7+ receivers being rotated in and out so much. Let them run a full route tree. Don't let them be predictable. And if you're going to put MVS and Justin Watson out there at the same time, Justin Watson has to start running some intermediate, shorter routes. He has to. He just has to, because MVS can't do that. You're not going to, unless, again, if you use MVS like they used him in the Bengals AFC Championship game.
Yeah, when he was the only healthy wide receiver.
I'm all fine with that. Like, that's what they need to do. But their wide receiver packages have been pretty predictable. And we finally saw Rashee Rice play on the outside against the Dolphins and run a little bit more of a diverse route tree, not just these benders over the middle of the field or the screens. I saw him go down the field a little bit and some in breakers from the outside, not just from the slot or this reduced split next to the offensive line. So I think he's going to be the guy that gets the majority of those early, like full route tree reps. Personally, I think we all understand that Kadarius Toney needs to be involved more on a per play basis because he's so explosive and he can do things that nobody else in this wide receiver room can do. He just does. So I don't think it's going to happen right away, but he's been healthy up to this point and they've been very, very careful with him. And I think that after the bye, we're going to start to see him get a little bit more involved, be more a part of the offense. I mean, go back to that AFC Championship game. What's the one thing that stood out to you before he got hurt? They were throwing the ball down the field to him. Like,
they were.
Even earlier in the season when they acquired him, they were throwing him the ball down the field. So
he doesn't go vertical anymore. He's only been around the line of scrimmage.
I don't want to see him getting the ball in jet sweeps anymore. I don't want to see him
or
getting
taking
the ball handoffs, the line of
scrimmage,
any of that stuff.
Ugh,
no more.
It's disgusting. It doesn't work.
Playbook. Throw it out. And then we'll get to Sky Moore really quickly.
Yeah, please.
Lots of wasted movement in his routes. Like, it feels like he's trying too hard. I put in my film review that I did on Wednesday, I showed a clip where he's in man coverage on the outside and he's trying to run just an over route over the middle of the field. So he's on the right side of the offense. And what he does is he releases to the inside the cornerback who's playing close coverage. And instead of just kind of trying to work his way inside and then break over the middle of the field, he breaks back around the cornerback, tries to get up by him, and then break over the middle of the field. How long do you think that takes? That takes a very long ass time is what it takes. There's no reason. If you're going to release to the inside, that's fine. Jab step outside, release inside, work to the middle of the field, shorten the amount of time. There's a lot of wasted movement in what he's trying to do. It's like he's trying to make the perfect read, trying to get perfectly open all the time. Don't worry about that. Simplify it. Use your releases. Your releases are good. He's a good route runner. He's not a great route runner. He's a good route runner. So I just think we need to simplify what's going on with these wide receivers. Let them run their route tree. Let them be more multiple. Like, don't I guess that's kind of backwards. Not simplify what they do. In terms of having the offense out there, the offense needs to be more simplified. When you're rotating so many players out there, it gets so complicated, and they're all just like, well, you have one thing you're going to do, the one thing you're going to do here. They need to be more multiple. So I think the offense in itself, Andy should be letting these wide receivers have a more diverse route tree. It would make them less predictable from a route running perspective, and maybe take some of the pressure off Travis Kelce to always get open.
I agree. One thing that's really frustrating about this team is the lack of really any clear picture from the fan perspective as far as who is responsible for certain things on the offense. I've always found that, in Eric Bieniemy's time, and then now this year, I don't really know if I can say with any certainty if the change from Eric Bieniemy to Matt Nagy has been positive, negative, or neutral, because so much of what the Chiefs do on offense from both a design perspective and a calling perspective and all of that, of course, it's Andy's show. It's been Andy's show, his whole time here. But I just kind of wonder out loud if that new voice in the offensive room hasn't really been to the benefit of the offense. Now, again, because we don't know the answers to that, because the Chiefs will never, ever, ever either throw Nags under the bus or give us really any look into the game planning, like who actually is responsible for what. I think we're all just left here kind of wondering, but I don't know. Do you get the sense that if Andy is this genius offensive mind, which he is, we know he is for sure, then like, how does it get to the point where he is using all these receivers in all these predictable ways if it's not the influence of some other new voice? I just don't know how he let this happen, but I don't even know if I can blame it. You know what I mean? It's just frustrating.
It's tough. Like, there's a lot of new faces in the offense room.
Yeah.
Not one of them has been in the offense for 2 years. None of them.
Sure.
So that's another thing too. They even talked about that in the press conferences this earlier today when we recorded this on Friday. Matt Nagy was specifically talking about how these guys, they haven't been in the system that long. Even a guy as good as Sammy Watkins was when he first got to Kansas City, it took him a while to adjust to the system. Like, the only reason that Juju Smith-Schuster could come in and just be as good as he was is because he was a zone savant. They don't have zone savants. Like, they just don't. It's Travis Kelce and then everybody else. And when you don't have someone that can take that pressure off of him, it stresses the rest of the wide receiver room. When you're trying to use Sky Moore as your ex-receiver, I mean, we're talking about playing a guy who's more of a slot.
He's a little guy.
You're outside, and I like Sky. I'm
sure
a guy who goes to bat for him. I think he's going to have a good second half of the season. But I wouldn't say he's an ex-receiver. He's done well for himself. He's gotten open against some very tough competition in Sauce Gardner and Patrick Surtain. He's actually broken them off a few times. He's been able to work it. But at the end of the day, we're trying to put a lot of blame on Andy Reid and moving parts when he thought he had a plan. And obviously when you have a plan in the off season, when you're not executing against the defenses that are adjusting in season, you can't see how the plan plays out. So I think that he had this plan. We're going to rotate a bunch of different guys in and make defenses guess where the ball is going. Now, in theory, before the season, that sounds great, right?
Yeah.
That sounds great.
I was into it in the offseason for sure. I thought that was brilliant.
Everybody did. And now we're seeing the issues that it has, specifically when the teams take away Travis Kelce and they say, beat us. Find a way to beat us that's not in your first 15. That's the big thing. When the defenses adjust, where's the adjustment back? From Andy Reid and company? They haven't been able to do it in large part because the players still don't have full grasp of the entire offense. And I know there's been talk about how Kadarius Toney doesn't know the offense. I think in terms of not knowing the offense and not having all of it at your disposal, there are two different areas and worlds that we live in. I think Kadarius Toney understands what he's being asked to run. And clearly, when we go back to last year, he was more involved then and more explosive and productive then. So why would that not translate to this year? People are just grasping at straws at that part, in my opinion. But I think this goes back to time in the system. Look at the defense. Last year, guys were young. They were trying to figure it out. And this year, they're all figuring it out. A lot of it because they have playing time to do so, right? When you're out there all the time, you have to figure it out. You have to learn to sink or
sink or swim. Yep,
but
absolutely.
When you have these wide receivers that are coming in, 7, 10, 15 snaps a game, you got time to sink. Oh, no, the coach is going to pull you out before you sink. You're not going to have to learn to swim. That's the biggest problem that I think we're seeing right now.
Yep, I think that is fair. You mentioned players not knowing the offense. Let's talk about a player that does know the offense. Of course, number 15. So Austin and I have been a little worried, or maybe just kind of wondering. His passes just seem like they have a little less zip on him this year. We had the Ringers' Rainy Gisele on last week. He did kind of take public last week that he just doesn't see the fastball that Mahomes had early on his career. Number one, do you see any truth to that, or do you feel like it's mostly just a product of the plays not working out on the other end of the pass? What are you hoping to see from Mahomes in the second half of the year, maybe different than what was in the first half of the year?
So I'd be willing to challenge anybody that thinks that he doesn't have the zip to go watch him against the Chargers and tell me he doesn't have zip on the football.
Okay.
Because that's when you're able to process quickly. And if you watch Patrick in that game, he was getting from his first, second to third read, like he was going. He saw everything super quick. When you can do that, you can play freely. Okay. You're not second guessing. Against the Broncos, against the Jets in the second half, when he wasn't operating it, he was trying to guess a little bit much. And sometimes when you're playing like this offense is so much based on timing and putting it into areas of the field. It's not always about just zipping the ball into tight spaces, specifically because Patrick isn't doing that much this year. He doesn't trust his players to come down with those. If he had more trust in his players, I think, in his receivers to be in the right spot and to catch the football in space, I think we'd be seeing more like what Josh Allen does. We're testing and what Joe Burrow has done.
He rips him
before his injury. He's like, I trust my guys to make this play. I'm going to zip it to a spot where I think they can get that. And guess where we just don't see Patrick do that? He threw that ball perfectly to Justin Watson in the end zone. It was zipped in there against Miami. That thing was a bullet. And guess what? It was dropped.
Yeah.
So I think he's second guessing himself, and more he feels like he has to take a little bit off the ball for some of these guys,
or else they won't catch it. Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Okay. So bottom line there is you don't have concerns about strength, mechanics, injury, any type of physical tool of Patrick's. You just think it's a trust, maybe scheme a little bit, maybe weapons a little bit, that type of situation.
I think it's more in his head than anything.
Okay.
And with time,
what's better?
That should rectify itself. Again, the games where he's operating quickly, you see it all. You do. That first drive against Miami, that ball was zipping in places. Like he can still do that. It's when his mind is going that quickly, his arm does too.
What do you think about the lack of, and I guess this ties to the same thing, the lack of deep ball? Now I know defenses play the Chiefs, or they certainly did. I don't really know if they're doing it as much these days, but they certainly played them for a long time to take away the deep ball. Pat had to learn to check down. We all know that whole story, the 2021 and kind of mostly 2022 story. Do you think that without Pat getting a lot of the game reps for deep balls, do you think does that maybe hinder his confidence in throwing a deep one? Like if they haven't hit a 40+ yard air touchdown in a while, I forget, I saw whenever it was, but it's been a while. Do you worry that without them trying it regularly that he's getting rusty there, or not really?
I don't necessarily think so. And they've still, to my eye, they still are taking those chances downfield. The big difference, I think, is Justin Watson's a fine downfield receiver. He's fine. MVS should have had multiple bombs in his career in Kansas City. But his refusal to go get the football is what's. If you're Patrick, do you want to throw the ball to him down the field?
No. No.
Do you want to do that? The ball that he threw to MVS against the Dolphins, he waited for that defender to get there. He never tried to go and get it. He just sat there. Because at worst, he could have gotten a penalty, but he just sat there. He waited. So it's so incredibly frustrating for me to watch it. I cannot imagine Patrick throwing that up there in man-on-man coverage, and he's just like, this dude's just going to wait for it, and it's not going to fall incomplete. And so, I mean, I can't speak for Patrick. I'm not in his head. I don't talk to him. Like I don't know about the mechanics of. Yeah, maybe we'll see. We'll never really know. I don't know about the mechanics of if you don't do it enough in game, if you don't hit enough of them during the season, do you just lose it?
Right.
I tend not to believe in that, specifically because he's a professional athlete and the best quarterback on the planet
ever.
So yeah, like I'm of the opinion that once you get one of them and somebody actually comes down with it, and it's not out of like a 3rd and 10, and when you gotta have it, when it's like a shot play on 2nd down or a shot play on 1st down, you start to get rolling. That's when we see those plays like sporadically come for the Chiefs. It's not when it's okay, we absolutely have to.
Good point.
Down, it's 3rd down. When they're moving, it's 1st and it's 2nd down, and they're hitting the shot plays.
Foot's on the throat.
Bunches.
Yep. I do think that, if Tyreek Hill were retraded back to the Chiefs, like I don't think we would see Pat like not try it or not hit him or any of that stuff. I do think that it's just not in the offense right now. Speaking of the offense, there's one area of that has been probably the bigger frustration other than the wide receivers, which is of course the third, or the not even 3rd and short, just short yardage in general. This team, despite the big boys, especially in the interior line, but I mean the tackles are no slouches either, should be in everyone's estimation, especially with a running back that seems to be able to want to get his nose dirty and run hard and all. Pacheco's maybe not the biggest guy in the world, but certainly seems like someone that could be trusted in short yardage situations. I just wonder if they're in their own heads a little bit, and they kind of have the yips on 3rd and 1, and just they think like, oh my God, if we run a halfback dive here and it gets stuffed, then everyone's going to say, well, of course that got stuffed. Why didn't you put it in Pat's hands? And then when they put it in Pat's hands and he gets pressure and he has to throw it away or something, and then they say, God, you could have just easily handed that ball off, and instead you tried to get too cute. Obviously, fans have an answer for everything after it happens. Fans always say if something didn't work, you should have done the exact opposite. Do you feel that the short yardage stuff is just kind of a product of just the Chiefs being a little in their own heads and a little fluky, or do they actually not have the either personnel or scheme to be effective in short yardage?
The fact that they don't have the option for a quarterback sneak makes it so much more difficult to convert 3rd and shorts.
Yeah,
it does. Teams, we saw it against the Dolphins. They put nobody in the A gap.
No, not at all. It was crazy.
So that naturally makes it more difficult to throw the ball in those short yard situations. And then I've harped on this quite a bit, and I'm going to do it again because it's frustrating.
Please.
This season, we have seen a really big crackdown on defenses on those pick plays in the end zone where they run the flat route, but they run this corner route to try to pick off the DB. They've just been passing it off now. DBs or cornerbacks just pass it off. So if you go to the flat, the guy on the outside is taking that no matter what. And that being the play call on the 3rd and short against Miami to Noah Gray, when you think you're going to be able to get Travis Kelce to pull a pick on someone when they're passing it off, is, in my opinion, poor planning. You're not seeing it. That's poor. We are all seeing the same stuff here. This is getting passed off at the NFL level. This is every defense doing this.
Yeah, they're not falling for it anymore.
You're not going to get lucky in that. So that's poor planning, in my opinion. And then running the ball on those short yardage, I think they don't typically establish it well enough. They have actually been one of the worst run offenses in the NFL this year. Last year, they were one of the most efficient and the most explosive going into the postseason. This year, they've been, like, I believe, 31st in success rate in rushing the football. It's been terrible. And they have no confidence in their ability right now. And a guy like even Joe Thuney, who's a fantastic player, is making mistakes and also having to guess, in my opinion, about what Donovan Smith's going to do. Is he going to make his block? Is he going to? Am I going to have to cover for him? If they pull guys, you see Trey Smith lunging at a linebacker, missing, and he's just sitting there in the gap, ready to tackle Isaiah Pacheco. So they have no confidence in their short yardage run game, but they're so unfortunately predictable with how they do this. It's not.
Yes.
The threat to run the ball is, they're coming in under center. Okay, fine. They're going to either throw the ball quick or they're going to run the ball. We got linebackers that can trigger downhill. We have corners that are going to get to the flat. Like, that's kind of what it's been. It's been very interesting. And then you have Sky Moore in the backfield with Jerick McKinnon. Feels like it's out of necessity. You have to get creative out of necessity to convert a 3rd and short.
Yeah,
that's a problem. Like,
brutal.
That's not a great situation to be in. So I think the simple fact that there's no threat of quarterback sneak on 3rd and short, it really limits what they can do, and it makes them more predictable. And they're just going to have to get better execution wise if they're going to continue to try to actually convert on 3rd and short. Because if you come out and actually execute, you should be fine. But they've also not been able to do that. So it's really rough right now. It really is.
It also kind of feels like, with struggles in the pass game, now obviously you still have 15 pulling the trigger, but with the lack of consistent weapons and consistent threats outside of Travis Kelce, it just feels like when the Chiefs are in should run situations, maybe not obvious runs, but definitely, that teams are very comfortable playing the run and just assuming that their back end coverage is going to be fine one-on-one or whatever the case may be. But it used to feel to me like the reason that the Chiefs had success running the ball was because they had success throwing the ball. And obviously everything in football, you're only as weak as or strong as your weakest unit and all that stuff. If you have one aspect of the game working, it helps all the other aspects, all that stuff. So I do think that part of that too is just kind of teams being fine with, okay, if it's a short yardage situation, we're sending everybody up there, and you're probably not going to throw it, and you're probably not going to be successful running. So definitely been a struggle. Hopefully they can kind of get some of that stuff ironed out. Now the Eagles are obviously coming up on Monday, going to be the exact opposite. I mean, they have as little trouble in short yardage situation as any team in the NFL, in the history of the NFL. So we'll see if they can maybe take some notes from the Eagles. Maybe Pat will have to start squatting 600. I don't know. We've spent a ton of time on the offense. I don't really want to spend too much longer on the Chiefs, but I do kind of want to check in on the defense. Obviously, they've been unbelievable. They're a top 5 or better unit this year. Do you see any weak links or any mirages with this unit, or do you think that this is pretty much the success rate from the defense that you would expect moving forward?
Man, that's a great question, because it's unheard of. We haven't seen this in Kansas City. And I was listening to Dave Merritt talk today, and he said something that really resonated with me about this team. He said he told the players, like, if you ever go anywhere else and they ask you to do more from a responsibility perspective, from running different kinds of zones, from if there's more on your plate essentially somewhere else, I will personally pay you $100. That tells
I love
me
that.
Everything I need to know about this defense. They are not just prepared. They do more. There's more on their plate. And the fact that they're playing so fast tells you they see it all. They understand this defense. They got the players exactly the intelligence level that they want. Drue Tranquill's intelligence is incredibly
off the
gifted.
charts. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. You have the guys on the back end, Justin Reed, now in his second year in this defense. You've got Brian Cook, he really is more of just he's not a single high guy. They don't actually have one anymore.
Brian Cook, aka the Chiefs' fastest ball carrier on the season so far. Just had to mention that. Shout out Brian Cook.
In a straight line. Absolutely fantastic in a straight line. But I think right now we're seeing the trust from every single one of these players. The coaching staff puts them in positions. They're not allowing the ball to be thrown down the field. When you don't let people get teams get those big explosives, they all trust in the defensive system. And the fact that they run so many different coverages, that Spags, as the blitzing ninja, has been able to just get after everybody in a different way each game, and that he can send Trent McDuffie or Jalen Watson or Josh Williams or Jamari Connor or
Yeah.
L'Jarius Sneed, or any single one of these guys can blitz at any time. And they all execute at a very high level. It makes it so difficult to find things to really nitpick. Their run defense is going to be much better than we've seen in past, but it will be their weak link. If a team can just physically outmatch them, and not just try to do what the Miami Dolphins do, just get to the edge.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's going to come down to Braxton Berrios on Leo Chanel, and that's a matchup you're always going to lose.
Yes, we liked that matchup for us quite a bit.
I love that matchup. Anytime I can see Leo Chanel on someone who's not a tackle,
Yeah.
even if it's a tackle, I like my chances to see him win that battle.
Agreed.
That dude's a fantastically freakish athlete. So I'm telling you, they're going to be just biding their time. If you run for first downs, okay, fine. Eventually, you're going to be in second and long. And that's when we're going to get after you. And that's what I love about this is that, yeah, you might get a good couple runs, good couple plays here. But when you don't get that play, guess what's coming? Oh, wait, you don't know what's coming. Spags is what's that step ahead.
Got to guess. Yeah.
In his bag, it's so much fun to watch. And I can't wait because I think they're going to get even better after the bye.
You know what's hilarious is you just highlighted so many, fantastic players on the Chiefs defense, and the player you didn't even mention is maybe their best defensive player. And I mean, when Chris Jones is not an afterthought, obviously, he was correctly described today as the piston that makes the engine go on the defense.
Absolutely.
But when it's not just pray that Chris Jones gets a sack or you're in trouble, which is what it's been for a while in Kansas City. That just makes everybody so much better. It obviously Charles Omenihu being added to that defensive line has been a shot in the arm to just their juice off the edge and their ability to get to the quarterback, which is always important. I just feel it's crazy that each level of the defense on its own is playing so well. And then all three levels happen to be all playing well at the same time. It's been wild. Obviously, they've been very fortunate with injury luck so far this year. Bolton being out sucks, but that's kind of the one group that if you had to take one starter out of there, you felt the best about the guys stepping in. Obviously, the three linebackers that are playing right now with Gay, Chanel, and Tranquil are great. So just a really fun unit. The defensive side, and it's crazy to be more confident when the Chiefs defense is out on the field than the Chiefs offense. That is certainly something that I grew up with in the 90s and then completely forgot about. So starting 2002 or so, when everything turned to the offense, and then we had a brief glimpse of it in 2015, and then it was back to all offense all the time. So just a really, really funny dynamic right now with the Chiefs. Let's move on to Chiefs at Eagles at Chiefs. There have been 39 NFL games scheduled between Chiefs versus Dolphins in Frankfurt and Chiefs versus Eagles on Monday night. After we record this episode on this Friday night, there's going to be a full slate of Sunday games before the Chiefs take the field against the second best Kelce Swift duo in the world in Jason Kelce and DeAndre Swift. Jason mentioned this week that he doesn't buy into the idea of revenge games, but that he is more looking forward to beating Andy Reid and his brother for the first time in his career. The Chiefs and Seahawks, who the Eagles will play in December, are the only two teams besides Philly that Jason hasn't beaten. What are some things, high level, not necessarily tape stuff, but just stories or matchups or whatever, that you're most excited about in Chiefs v Eagles round 2?
Oh man, I think that the biggest thing is how are they going to stop these deep balls? Like the deep ball really got after them in the Super Bowl. And that's where this defense has not allowed this season. It hasn't been the coverage busts of 2 years ago with Dan Sorensen running back to try to get somebody, or even Tyrann Mathieu.
I just had some flashbacks.
throwing his hands up because no one's back there. Like those are the times of the past. And even last year in the Super Bowl, those shots, they were close. McDuffie was close and AJ Brown just beat him. So I'm excited to see how this chess matchup, how are they going to stop AJ Brown? Like that's my biggest intrigue in this defense versus the offense matchup. I think Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback, and AJ Brown has been in my opinion, the straw that stirs the drink, or the spoon that stirs the drink, however you feel. Like he's been fantastic this season and elevated their offense to a place that it hasn't really gotten to. Even last year when they were so efficient in multiple different ways. So how are they gonna address that? This offense, how is Travis Kelce going to start getting open against triple coverage? Like,
Yeah.
so much
Right.
attention is going to be put on him. What are they going to do differently? Are they going to start blocking him more? Is he going to be more of a get somebody else open
A
player?
decoy?
A decoy, force other guys the ball a little bit more, maybe get some attention off of him, because defenses don't care about anybody else. Very honestly, they don't.
And they shouldn't, really.
Yeah, they shouldn't. It should be, okay, Travis, you're not doing anything this game. And unfortunately, it might end up stopping the great 1,000-yard reception seasons he's had if defenses just continue.
I've been worried about that.
And
yeah.
I'm starting to get a little worried about it, but we'll see how that goes. The last thing that I'm very interested in is the offensive line, the Chiefs' offensive line, that is. It's been very hit or miss this season. We talked about how the run game has been very bad and just collectively poor. And the tackles are new. The guards are having some trouble guessing and predicting where they're going to go, things like that, how they're going to have to adjust to them. So I think this bye week was a good spot for them to get all on the same page, maybe back to the basics. And I think their best run play this year has been duo, which is basically you line up how many different double teams can you get on the offensive line and then work to the second level. They've been really good at generating space for Pacheco. It's just an inside run. You don't run duo to the outside. You run up the middle, and you just allow Pacheco to see the doubles and then find the hole. And
figure it out.
I think that's been their best run play this year. And maybe they can, maybe they can push some of these defensive tackles around, because I don't know if you guys heard, but Jalen Carter is a stud as a
yes.
rookie.
How did we let that happen? How did the NFL let them get him?
Ask the Chicago Bears, because they drafted,
yeah.
I mean, my offensive tackle 2 ahead of him when they
Yeah.
should have just drafted him. And just, I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
I'm really not happy about it, because you got Jordan Davis from 2 years ago, and now he's with his old teammates and all the Georgia Bulldogs continuing to be drafted.
So annoying.
By the Eagles. So I think that the big storyline for this game at the end of the day is, is the Chiefs offense going to figure it out? You've had the bye. You've got even a day after everyone else on Monday at home, big stage against the team you played and barely beat in the Super Bowl. Can they figure it out again? Can you take some of that from the game in the Super Bowl and reignite the offense? They scored 35 points in the Super Bowl. Can they do 34 points in the Super Bowl?
38-35, right? I think was the final.
Something like that. It was a high scoring affair.
Yep, 38-35.
Back.
That's a great question. It's funny that the personnel hasn't really changed a ton in this game. I mean, there have been some changes. Certainly
some injuries.
Yes, some injuries, and certainly along the Philly defense. If you look at the 3 units for each team, offense, defense, special teams between both, the worst of those 6 units is the Philly defense statistically. We've got, by DVOA, the Chiefs offense is 6th, Philly's 7th, both top 7 offenses there. Special teams, Chiefs 6, Philly 8, both looking good there. Defense, Chiefs 3, hilarious. Philly 19. So a little bit under half. Now, DVOA, of course, is not end all be all, but it gives a pretty good snapshot of what the Eagles defense has been doing so far this year. And if a unit can be had in this game in a matchup of 2 defending Super Bowl, 2 teams with the best record in the NFL. Let's not forget that. Yeah. This is an absolutely titanic clash. I do think that the Chiefs, can find some wiggle room against the Eagles defense. It probably is going to be close. It's probably going to be hard fought. The Eagles are going to have their hearts in it. Nobody likes to lose a Super Bowl and then go play that team again, coming up the following year. So we'll see the matchup. Final prediction, I suppose. Austin and I haven't really been doing predictions lately on the show, but I'm really interested in this one, especially from your perspective. Do you think the Chiefs have it in them to get it done? Do you even care about the prediction, or do you just want to see the game? Where are you at?
Oh, I'm always, we do predictions every single week, so I'm always in that. And I got a couple players of the game. I think Rashee Rice is going to have a big game against the Eagles specifically because you can attack them in the middle of the field. One thing that Rashee Rice has done better than anybody else on this team outside of Travis Kelce is hurt teams over the middle of the field. He could have a couple big breakaway plays. I think he's going to get in the end zone. And then L'Jarius Sneed against AJ Brown. I think he's going to be not just have his hands full, but use his short area quickness to match up well against the bigger physical player. I think he's going to get interception in this game. So I think L'Jarius Sneed could end up being the defensive player. And the prediction I have is 31-27. And yes, I think the Chiefs do have enough to pull it off in this game, specifically because, like you talked about, their defense, they can be had in the secondary. And I think that this is a great opportunity for the Chiefs to come out of the bye with a great plan for their wide receivers, get them in the game. And again, a big breakout from Rashee Rice, I think, helps everyone get going.
I love that prediction. Obviously, not just because the Chiefs win, but getting the offense going would be a big shot in the arm as the second half of the season starts. If people can see the Chiefs go out in a big Monday night showdown and put up 30-something points and beat the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, talk about positive momentum. That's all you would need. Yeah. I think probably both defenses are going to win the day. I certainly feel extremely confident in the Chiefs defense. I don't think that Philly's going to be able to come out there and do a lot of stuff that they've been doing to other teams in the NFL. Frankly, the other teams in the NFL don't have the dogs on defense that the Chiefs have. But I don't quite know if the Chiefs offense is ready to break out. I do think it's maybe coming this year, but I don't really see it here. I'm going to go 24-21. Chiefs, of course, in that one. Dan, thank you so much for stepping in for Austin. Plugs for you. You're, of course, on Twitter at InHarmsWay19. You do film stuff for RGR Football on YouTube, which everyone should go check out. Tons of in-depth, great breakdowns by you guys there. NFL33.com is where you guys do your Substack breakdown. And you're also doing football guys on fantasy football stuff, right? That would be Twitter at Football Guys.
Yep, the YouTube page is where all my videos are. They drop every single Saturday for your 4 must-start players of the week with a little film breakdown in there too. So yeah, lots of stuff going on every single week. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on. I had a great time.
Busiest man in show business. I appreciate it. Austin appreciates it. And for the listeners, we will catch you guys next week. It is always sunny in Chiefs Kingdom.